Talofa lava, this is Pacific Waves from RNZ Pacific. I'm Susana Suisuiki. Coming up.
And then they show the face, and then all my kids shocking.
The family of Samoan seasonal workers killed in Auckland's motorway crash speak out. Also,
really disappointed. If you delay, my people will become a minority.
Melanesian leaders want to meet with Indonesia's president, and later on, Kiribati prepares for its first parliamentary sitting early next month. Warning, some listeners may find the following story distressing. The wife of the driver killed in a horror crash on State Highway 1 in Ramarama on Monday says she was supposed to have been in the vehicle. Police say a blown tyre caused a truck to crash through a road barrier into oncoming traffic, hitting the van Uwili Fa'ofo was driving, killing him and his two nephews and severely injuring 3 other passengers. He is survived by his wife Nu'ulua Fa'ofo and their 6 children, left fatherless just before Father's Day. Nu'ulua Fa'ofo says she was meant to be on that trip that morning to accompany her husband, but he told her to stay. Grace Viva'ai has the story.
That was the sound of RC workers giving thanks to God before departing to go their own ways. Mrs. Fa'ofo described her husband as a loving, hard-working father and uncle who cared for his family a lot. She says she had no idea what was going on in the news or on social media about the crash until police officers knocked on her door after 5 p.m. on Monday.
1:45 in the afternoon, he didn't answer. I called the messenger, he didn't answer too. And then I waiting, and then pick all my kids in here, and then I will stay here. My sister's coming, my older, they come here, they're doing everything at home. And then maybe 5 to 7 p.m. and the police coming.
Mrs. Fa'ofo said she was meant to be on the trip to Opotiki with her husband to pick up his nephews from a kiwi fruit packing orchard.
Last week, his plan, he go down there to pick up his nephew, to spend the time with us. And then he looked forward to go. And then I want to go too, and he said, no, you stay, you be strong, look after the kids, and then I will go by myself.
Videos of the crash went viral on social media and caused a lot of misinformation about the event. Mrs. Fa'ofo had seen some TikTok reels of her husband's dead body being shared around.
They share the video. He didn't understand the information. He didn't understand for the situation about them.
Mrs. Fa'ofo says her husband had gone to pick up her nephews, who she believes were not well informed about other options of transport to Auckland.
I think my nephew, he didn't see like company help about that. Because he, like a Samoan kids, the men, he didn't know anything.
Former Eastpac team leader Jacob Te Kurapa explains the processes where RSC workers have a team leader who then relays information through to those higher up.
That team leader or supervisor then relays any messages or further support which may be required back through to the company, through the RSC support worker or through the RSC advisor or manager.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Christopher Luxon, who was attending the Pacific Islands Forum Leaders Summit in Tonga, has extended his sincere condolences to Samoa's Prime Minister over the tragedy.
I also had a great opportunity to have a good discussion with Prime Minister Fiame, and I also extended our condolences from New Zealand to Samoa with respect to the 2 RSE workers that were tragically killed in the State Highway 1 accident a couple of days ago, and the 1 RSE worker now in critical condition in hospital as well.
Equal Employment Opportunities Commissioner Saunoa Mali Karanina Sumeo says she was shocked and saddened by the accident resulting in the death of 3 Samoan RSE workers and the injuries to more. She says our sympathy and alofa go to their ainga and families. It also raises with me the need to ensure we provide good pastoral care to people who come to our country to work on these schemes, to make sure they get home safely to their loved ones. Mrs. Faofo is thankful for all the messages and sympathy her and her family have received from the community. She has told their family and friends in Aotearoa, Samoa and abroad still coming to terms with the devastating news to be strong.
I stay strong and be happy. So that's why I say thank you for the community, the school with my whanau, the old people related to me and his family. They already message, they already say to me, be strong because of our kids.
The Auckland Samoan community is planning a memorial service.
Leaders of the Melanesian Spearhead Group, who met on the sidelines of the Pacific Islands Forum and Leaders Summit, have decided to collectively approach Indonesia's incoming president, Prabowo Subianto, regarding concerns about human rights violations against indigenous peoples in West Papua. The president-elect this month signalled an interest in seeking advice and insights from Papua New Guinea on how to respect the rights of indigenous peoples. In Tonga, the leaders of Papua New Guinea, Fiji, Solomon Islands and Vanuatu met to discuss the issue. Lydia Lewis was there and filed this report.
Melanesian leaders, all of them, want to meet with Indonesia's president after the prime ministers of Fiji and Papua New Guinea failed their Melanesian Spearhead Group special envoy for West Papua.
We couldn't find a time where both of us go to Indonesia. We were asked to go and talk on the issue of human rights issues.
MSG leaders and representatives emerged from their 2-hour-long final meeting before the leaders' retreat, announcing all of them should meet with Indonesia as soon as practicable.
Really disappointed. If you delay, my people will become a minority and almost in the daily are facing discrimination, and 100,000 to 60,000 West Papua displaced. Currently displaced, so this need to act.
Maybe it is good to have a face-to-face meeting with the President of Indonesia on some issues in relation to human rights, because the forum back in 2019 decided to ask a UN mission to go on do fact-finding mission in Indonesia, what would be the real root cause of alleged human rights violations.
New Caledonia was high on the agenda too. The MSG chair and Vanuatu Prime Minister Carlos Salwai told me that they're going to continue to stay in the driver's seat. He says, after all, the Kanak people in the French territory are members of the MSG.
It's quite a complex issue. We never expect that this kind of riot would happen in New Caledonia. We would like to see more efforts be done in the committee of the decolonisation.
Paris maintains that dialogue is open. It stresses that it is involved in the decolonisation process. The French ambassador to the Pacific told me that violence is not the answer.
In Kiribati, with all the MPs elected, the focus now is on the first sitting of Parliament and the election of the Speaker. The 44 MPs include 5 women for the first time, 4 of them among a total of 17 newcomers to the Mianaba ni Maungatabu. Don Wiseman spoke with our correspondent in Kiribati, Rimon, about the next stages.
Well, here we are halfway through this election process. We've got an interesting new parliament, lots of independents. Quite a few from the previous parliament have lost their seats.
I think that's the uniqueness of the Kiribati democracy, especially with the transition period in its election process. I think it needs to be clear that there are 2 cycles. The first is the general elections to get people into parliament or the candidates into parliament. We've done now with that one, and so that's one checkbox ticked. I think it's now on those who have been elected to sort themselves out and into parties, and also not just to form up into parties, but also to identify the best candidate to put forward in the presidential presidential elections, which brings us to the second cycle. The second cycle was happening around October. By October, the people again would have to go to the polls to choose the presidential elections. And now in between that, Don, we have a meeting on the 13th of September. The 13th of September, basically now all the elected MPs are making their way to Capital, where they will need first to be sworn in by the Chief Justice. After they get sworn in, the next matter in the agenda is to elect the Speaker. This in the past was done in a secret ballot. This time it's been changed. It's going to be done in an open ballot, meaning all candidates or all MPs that have just been sworn in, it'll be known which Speaker they'll be voting for. After the Speaker is being voted in, it takes the helm or whatever, then that when the parties will be invited to present their candidates.
Well, Raymond, just a few questions there. Firstly, is there a Chief Justice?
There is. One has been just sworn in, I think, earlier this year by the President.
That was a temporary appointment, wasn't it?
The person who was in that position, what we understand back then was an interim measure. So I think after some time that the President made that official and she got sworn in, the current now, which is Chief Justice. So that Chief Justice is going to be officiating all these matters, regardless of what has happened with the judiciary saga back in the past 4 years or the last 3 years for that matter. So at least now we can say that there is a Chief Justice is sitting in the High Court or at the judiciary with Kiribati judiciary. The controversy of appointment and all that, I think, we're putting that aside now. At least that's what the government wants, to go forward with this arrangement.
Another issue is, are these MPs all going to get to Tarawa? Because the airline is mostly grounded, isn't it?
Well, the airline, Air Kiribati, it's not new. I mean, the past term, 4 years, and even the previous one before that, there's been an outcry for improvement. And it's a challenging job because the fleet is old and all that. I mean, we can go into that. But basically, that is the logistics. So the recent announcement from the airline, Air Kiribati, I think just announced yesterday, was that they're asking the public's understanding because their priority now will be put on just getting the MPs to Capital. And so, that's stirred quite a bit of a conversation by the public because a lot of backdated travel and freight that needs to get to wherever they need to be get. But now they're being told that in the name of getting the democratic process moving on. And so they're asking people for their understanding to allow that the airline now just focus on getting those MPs to Capital.
And the Speaker, is the Speaker always an MP, or?
It could be an MP, but it's usually not. Basically, in the past, it was someone who usually did not get elected from either side and then just pitched that. So you have to lobby to both parties for your nomination to be the Speaker. And so at this moment, we have some ideas, but we don't know who they are. They're all, just in the air right now, Don.
Tani's Mamau is coming up to his third term, which is the maximum allowed under the Kiribati constitution. There seems to be a sense that he's likely to get back in, but it's all going to depend on what sort of backing he can get from all these newcomers, isn't it?
Indeed, but also I think something that I try to stress to the international media who really don't understand that the process is that it's quite significant that they sort themselves out now with their parties and the numbers. That's important, but it's not really useful at this stage because it's still uncertain. Everything's going to go back to the people and the people will decide. So even if Tanis Mamau's party have the majority now, that will be useful if he gets re-elected and makes it easy for him. But, the past experience that we've seen in other governments is that they won by a minority government. And so over time, they started to bring other people across the floor and that's how that happened. So it's really, I should say, an open game right now. We can't really say for certainty. Of course, the cards may be in his favor, but, we can't preempt what the people want. Basically, the dynamics of the general elections are quite different from the dynamics of the presidential election. So I think what the president or whoever the candidate from the opposition is most likely to be Tessie, their performance in the past 4 years in Parliament and how they conducted themselves in the debate will really add to their campaign. And so people would really now choose. And, so I think it's about caliber and, your performance and your popularity over the past 4 years that will decide, the people will decide who they might vote for. And so at this moment, I can't preempt what the people will vote. I mean, we've seen what the general elections happened. In a sense, they came back quite strongly. But I think if you look at it in another way, opposition who had against the odds were, made it back and retained their seats. And so the new members might hold that balance of power. But I think it's a nationwide decision by the people that they will choose based on the performance of the candidate. So they'll have to look back at how Tanis has performed and the policies and how he conducted himself in Parliament. And I think that will add to the people's decision and say, should we vote for him? And right now it's uncertain to say who's going to be the main rival. We know we've been talking about Tessie, but she has to go through a process first within her own party to get her nomination through.
So Tessie Lambourne is the opposition candidate, probably, I guess. But there has to be a third candidate, doesn't there?
This is just my own words. I usually call the third candidate as just a dummy candidate, not really, because that has been really the case in the past, because they're not really running for it. But, they'll get some votes from people, but not really considerable votes. And so the main two ones are, of course, the main parties, the two main parties. But Tessie is being geared up to take that nomination. And it depends how united and how collective the opposition party are in getting her through. As is the nature of politics, anything can happen, and surprises are always an element of things like this. And, we could see someone new or not. I think only time can tell, Don.
That's Pacific Waves for today. For all episodes, head over to rnz.co.nz/Pacific. We're also on Spotify, Apple and iHeartRadio. From myself and the RNZ Pacific team, Tōwha Soifua.